Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda. So today the bulk of our talk will be passages from Savitri, and just a little bit to stress the importance of Savitri. When Mother was asked that when you move on, who will be our Guru, she had picked up Savitri and said, this will be your Guru. So that's the importance she gave Savitri. And many of us actually regard Savitri as Sri Aurobindo's Shabda Deha, his word body. So there's a story of how once when somebody had put something on a copy of Savitri, Sri Aurobindo had said, pick it up, you're putting it on top of me, because he was so identified with Savitri, because it was really his Shabda Deha, his word body. And as you read Savitri, it kind of gives you answers to everything, really every single thing. So we are going to begin with a passage where we often ask that, where is God? We see so much darkness and things not going well. What is all this about? So we'll start with this first passage from Savitri. It's page 55. It starts with, when darkness deepens, strangling the earth's breast. That's what we see in Kali Yuga, no? Darkness is sometimes quite deep and we feel almost strangled by it. And man's corporeal mind is the only lamp. Corporeal is material. So man's thinking is the only lamp, which is very little light, because with our mind we can't see much. The darkness is so dense and it seems like we have only the light of our mind to find our way through it, which is difficult. And man's corporeal mind is the only lamp. As a thief's in the night shall be the covert tread of one who steps unseen into his house. So this thief is God and his house is us. So how a thief comes very quietly, he comes in a way that the members of the house don't realize. So God stepping into our house will be as quiet as a thief. And that's what Mother and Sri Aurobindo say. They call this period the hour of God, because it's the time of Kali Yuga. Everything's going to pieces. But a special boon in Kali Yuga is that Mother and Sri Aurobindo say that whoever takes one step towards God, God will take 9 steps towards him, because majority of the beings are turned to darkness. But those who are turned to light, it's a period of unprecedented growth for them. That's why they call it the hour of God. Mother says that earth has never had such an opportunity of growth as it has in this period. So, as a thief in the night shall be the covert tread of one who steps unseen into his house. A voice ill heard shall speak. Whose is this voice? The voice of our soul, and that voice is ill heard by us. A voice ill heard shall speak, the soul obey. This reminds me of a story. I once worked with this one student of mine, a teenager who had a really bad case of anorexia. anorexia, if you've ever worked with somebody who has it, it's really a difficult one to work with. It makes you imagine all sorts of things about yourself, and it really kind of pulls you down. And this girl, she didn't go to any psychiatrist. Normally people are hospitalized with anorexia. She would only work with these lines from Savitri. You know, there are those beautiful lines: across the awful path no eye can see, barring the dreadful route no will can change. It's talking about how mother is standing in the way of the machinery of our thoughts. And she would just visualize mother standing and her thoughts as that machinery. And somehow she'd learnt up that passage and she would keep repeating it. And that horrible attack of anorexia is terrible. It tells you run away, go and live in a slum, there nobody will force you to eat. I mean, all kinds of crazy things to the most intelligent of people. And she would fight those attacks with this. Now, one day when she had a really bad attack of anorexia, and every time she would come to my evening class, it would help. But that day she said, I'm not coming. And I knew she needed to come. So I called her several times, and then she stopped taking my call, because that darkness doesn't allow you to reach out for anything that's bright. And when I reached my class, she was there. So I told her, how did you come? So she said, I don't know, miss. I was determined not to go, but something just made my body moved my steps, and I landed here. So that's this example of a voice ill heard shall speak, the soul obey. So her mind didn't want to hear that voice. A voice ill heard shall speak, the soul obey. A power into mind's inner chamber steal. A charm and sweetness open life's closed doors, and beauty conquer the resisting world. That's the title of our talk, Beauty Conquer the Resisting World. And that was how mother worked. Everyone who went to her with so much resistance, they would just one moment of her grace and charm falling on them, and all their resistance would drop away. Several stories like that. I'm sure we've had in our own lives also. So that is how mother worked. Beauty conquer the resisting world. The truth light capture nature by surprise. A stealth means a very quiet entry, like the stealth of a thief. The stealth of God compel the heart to bliss. When God will steal into our heart, even when we are saying no, 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 that stealing in will compel the heart to bliss. And earth grow unexpectedly divine. In matter shall be lit the spirit's glow. So when the body is supramentalized, in matter shall be lit the spirit's glow. In body and body kindled the sacred birth. The sacred birth of what? Of the spirit. Each body will be a birthplace, a cradle for the spirit. Night shall awake to the anthem of the stars. Anthem is a song. Night represents darkness, right? So darkness also will awake to the song of light. Mother beautifully said, one passage she wrote, that beings of darkness tried to cast beings of light into the night, and see what happened. They started shining like stars. So she's saying, when beings of light are plunged by whatever happens into the night, they don't just stay in darkness, they start shining in the night as stars. So that's what is being said here. Night shall awake to the anthem of the stars. The days become a happy pilgrim march. During the day, everything will be like a pilgrimage, a journey to God. Everything will be an offering to God. Our will, a force of the eternal's power. Our will right now is so distributed between the mental oscillations of now this, now that. It won't be like that. When the supramental age comes, our will a force of the eternal's power, and thought the rays of a spiritual sun. So thought will be rays of a truth consciousness. Sun represents truth, right? That's what the Gayatri mantra for the sun is. It's truth consciousness. So thought the rays of a spiritual sun. A few shall see what none yet understands. As yet we don't understand, but a few who have a vision can see that beautiful things are happening. God shall grow up while wise men talk and sleep. Here he's saying it tongue in cheek. God shall grow up. Where does God grow up? In evolution, in each of our bodies. So when the body gets supramentalized, that evolution is God growing up. While wise men will go on talking, this is good, this is bad. So he's saying it tongue in cheek. God shall grow up while wise men talk and sleep. For man shall not know the coming till its hour, and belief shall be not till the work is done. So when we look at the world, we often say that, what is all this? Is this the hour of God? Where is the supramental? How is it? So that's what he's saying. All this happens so subtly and behind the veil that only people who have an inner vision can see what really all this churning is leading to. So this is a very special passage. Now I'll read it without explanation. See, Savitri is one of its kind in the world. The mother says every line Sri Aurobindo has written to create the vibration of an Om. And many intellectual experts in English, they don't understand Savitri. But very simple people who have an opening in the heart, they feel. So Vijay Bhai had shared a very beautiful story with me once. He had told me that once a very simple person had come to one of the sadhaks of the ashram, a sadhak who was very well learned, and said that, you know, I really want to read Savitri, please help me. And that sadhak heard his broken English and all and said that he can barely speak English. How do I guide him to read Savitri? It was really a question. And then that man told the sadhak, you know, I don't understand Savitri English much, but I feel very good reading it. Whenever I read it, on every line I see a blue light. Blue light we know is Sri Aurobindo's light. So what great scholars of English don't understand, somebody who has a soul opening understands. So Vijay Bhai said that when somebody asked him, is Savitri difficult to understand? He said, yes. It is not only difficult, it's impossible to understand it with the mind. You have to feel it with your soul. Because the whole design of Savitri is to connect you to the psychic being and unfold it petal by petal. So even if you don't, like first time I read Savitri, I didn't understand anything. It was like reading a body of Sanskrit. Second time a little more, third time a little more. Every mother says as you read Savitri, it actually works on the cells of your brain to make you understand it more. And those of us who've read it several times say that they are not just words. It's true. Savitri actually works very deeply on everything in your consciousness. So I'll just read out this passage without explanation, just feel it. When darkness deepens, strangling the earth's breast, and man's corporeal mind is the only lamp, as a thief's in the night shall be the covert tread of one who steps unseen into his house. A voice ill heard shall speak, the soul obey. A power into mind's inner chamber steal, a charm and sweetness open life's closed doors, and beauty conquer the resisting world, and the truth light capture nature by surprise. A stealth of God compel the heart to bliss, and earth grow unexpectedly divine. In matter shall be lit the spirit's glow, in body and body kindled the sacred birth. Night shall awake to the anthem of the stars, the days become a happy pilgrim march, our will a force of the eternal's power, and thought the rays of a spiritual sun. A few shall see what none yet understands. God shall grow up while the wise men talk and sleep, for man shall not know the coming till its hour, and belief shall be not till the work is done. So he already knows that very few are really going to believe the work he's doing in, but he's still going to do it anyways. He says, nobody will believe me, but I know what I'm doing and I know it's going to be done. And so now we come to the next passage. So why all this struggle? Why is humanity plunged in so much darkness? The answer is very simple. Somewhere, all of us to a greater or a lesser degree have a resistance to our own light. Do you understand what it means? Do you know what I mean? We read, our gurus tell us that we are divine, everything is divine, but we can't integrally believe it at some level. Somehow our conditioning is to keep negating. So we are going to explore some very powerful lines of the dialogue between Death and Savitri. Death is Yama who comes to take Satyavan away, but actually Savitri is really our own psychodrama. Savitri is the voice of the psychic being or the divine mother within us, and Death is the voice of negation, the shadow. So Death is not a voice outside us. As we hear what Death says, we'll identify it with a shadow inside us, which is constantly telling us we are small, or wanting to negate others, wanting to negate ourselves. So Death is negation. Do you understand what negation is? Saying no to light. Yeah? So this passage, which is on page 448, a dark concealed hostility is lodged in the human depths, in the hidden heart of time. So there is this dark concealed hostility within all of us, is lodged in the human depths, in the hidden heart of time, that claims the right to change and mar God's work. So this hostility within us is constantly trying to undo Mother's work within us. A secret and enmity embushes the world's march. It leaves a mark on thought and speech and act. It leaves stain and defect on all things done. So there is this something inside us, please come. There is this something inside us which, when we see anyone shining, we want to negate them. If we think anything good about ourselves, that voice will say, "Arey, no, I'm not so good." You know, you can identify that voice. So just yesterday I was speaking to a student who was telling me that her husband's upbringing is such that anything wrong in her or her child, he'll be quick to point out. But it's not only a way of being in him to appreciate anything good. Anything good is taken for granted. it's supposed to be, but anything bad I'll nitpick. So that in a way is the voice of death, negation. You want to negate people, you want to put them down, you want to put yourself down. Yeah? So it stamps stain and defect on all things done. Till it is slain, peace is forbidden on earth. What is slain? What is slain? This negation, this hostility concealed in us, this whisper that lures to evil the human heart. There is no visible foe. We can't see the enemy, but the unseen is around us. Forces intangible besiege. There are so many forces pulling at us. Touches from alien realms, thoughts not our own, overtake us and compel the erring heart. So I remember there was a young student of mine who told me that, I was in a very happy, joyful state, and then something in me got bored of that state and I wanted to run away from it. But the point is, that is the whisper that's luring to evil the human heart. Actual peace and joy you can't get bored of. But the vital was reacting to the peace and joy and convincing his mind that this is boring, do something more exciting. So, and if the person believes that whisper which tells him it's boring, he'll let go of something so precious, isn't it? So there are different ways in which this voice whispers to us, taking us away from what's good. Or sometimes you'll hear it even when you're reading Mother and Sri Aurobindo. I remember this used to happen to me a lot when I started. I'd be reading it, and every 2 lines something in my mind would say, enough, put it away, put it away. Do you experience that? I don't know. Put it away, put it away. Or then I'd feel prickling in my throat, as if the whole body was reacting to the light of their words. Because their words are so powerful, and if they reach us, the parts of our being which are not ready for them keep revolting against them. So that is what we have to be aware of, recognize and not give in to. So there's no visible foe, but the unseen is around us. Forces intangible besiege, touches from alien realms. Thoughts not our own overtake us and compel the erring heart. Our lives are caught in an ambiguous net. An adversary force was born of old. An enemy force was born of old, invader of the life of mortal man. It hides from him the straight immortal path. A power came in to veil the eternal light, a power opposed to the eternal will, diverts the messages of the infallible word, contorts the contours of the cosmic plan. So there is a power which opposes light, and that power is not outside us. If we have light, each of us harbor the power that opposes the light also. And that is what is called human resistance. So that power diverts the messages of the infallible word. Infallible is perfect. The word of the soul is infallible. But that power diverts the messages of the infallible word, contorts the contours. Contours are the curves of the cosmic plan. Mother has made a plan for us. But if this power keeps whispering to us, it contorts the contours of the cosmic plan. A whisper lures to evil the human heart. It seals up wisdom's eyes, the soul's regard. It is the origin of our suffering here. This causes our suffering, this whisper which is always making us turn away from light. something that tells me, okay, I'll meditate, but that whisper will say, don't meditate, there's so much to do. Don't meditate, go out, watch a movie. I'm not saying don't do all this, but sometimes you know you need to do something, but there's a whisper which pulls us away from it and makes us do other things. A whisper lures to evil the human heart. It seals up wisdom's eyes, the soul's regard. What the soul is regarding you to do, it seals that up. It is the origin of our suffering here. It binds earth to calamity and pain. This all must conquer who would bring down God's peace. Unless we conquer this resistance inside us, we cannot bring down God's peace. You know, there's a beautiful, when you enter, there's something on receptivity put up. Receptivity is opening to the mother. But even if we want to open to the mother, that resistance in us, which we are not even conscious of, blocks off that opening. So, this all must conquer who would bring down God's peace. This hidden foe lodged in the human breast, the enemy is never outside. The enemy is inside us. And the eternal friend is also inside us. Who are you going to side with? You know the Mahabharata? The Kauravas are the enemies. They are the forces of darkness which are pulling us. Pandavas are the forces of light. And it's interesting that there are 100 Kauravas, only 5 Pandavas, because the pulls towards darkness are so much more. But when the forces of light get aligned to the eternal friend, the Krishna within us, victory is certain. But it's how much, that's what Mother calls conscious collaboration. She said, no, once very poignantly, she told humanity, the world is preparing for a huge change. Will you help? She actually asked us, will you help? Because she can't do this. I mean, at one level, she can do everything and she will do everything. But in the realm of the Leela, unless we open to her, you'll notice that even when you're sitting here, when you're open to her, she just pours light. And then when you go into mundane thinking, you're in the same place, but it's ordinary. Have you noticed that? So a lot of her working depends on how we consciously open to her light. So this hidden foe lodged in the human breast, man must overcome or miss his higher fate. This is the inner war without escape. You have to fight this inner war. And this is really the mother's battle. And it's so interesting that Sri Aurobindo and Hitler were born at more or less the same time, same time period. And Sri Aurobindo wanted to create a supramental, not create, but pave the way for the supramental species. And Hitler, if you read his Mein Kampf, he also had an idea of a Superman, okay? He wanted a Superman who was physically very strong, very beautiful, but ruthless, completely devoid of emotions. So if you notice in his concentration camps, if you read about them, they are very intriguing. It wasn't about just killing people. His concentration camps were designed to kill the soul in human beings. They didn't plant a single tree, because if a tree was, all greenery brings out something in you. And if you were ever caught singing, because music also brings out a soul flowering, you were killed. So his whole plan was to destroy the soul in man and create a Superman. That's what his whole thing was. No, he wanted to kill off the Jews, create the Aryan species. So both, it's so beautiful that the light was born and his adversary force was born at the same time. And Sri Aurobindo used to keep telling people, this is the mother's battle. Like Indians didn't want to fight the Allies because they were British. But he used to keep telling Indians, fight. fight Hitler, because it's not about India versus Britain, it's the mother's battle. He says if Hitler wins, humanity will be plunged into a darkness from which it will take centuries to come out. So we also know, I mean, this is just the play of light and darkness. We also know that there was one battle which Hitler fought, which he shouldn't have, and that was his downfall. And well, that will take a detour, so I'm not going into that. But mother played a huge role in guiding him to. You want to know about it? Okay, that's taking a bit of a detour, but it is known that Hitler was actually a possessed human being. He was a very ordinary orator, but there was a being called, mother called the Lord of Nations, who used to appear to Hitler, and he used to come to in a very shimmering form and give Hitler various instructions which he would blindly follow. So one day mother took the form of the Lord of Nations and told him to fight that particular battle, which all his generals were again, but Hitler would blindly fight it, and that was Hitler's downfall. So this is just to say how there's always sort of, when light is born, its shadow comes along with it to fight it. Now page, oh sorry, the earlier page was not 448. Oh, it was 448 only. Okay, so this is also 448. A sun has passed on earth night shadow falls. Yes, there are happy ways near to God's sun, but few are they who tread the sunlit path. Only the pure in soul can walk in light. So there is all this darkness, but mother says, yet there are happy ways near to God's sun, but few are they who tread the sunlit path. The sunlit path is the path of opening to the mother. Only the pure in soul can walk in light. Now I'm going to read out a beautiful passage describing the cause of Sri Aurobindo's death. So we've all talked about human resistance, right? And this passage describes how Sri Aurobindo may not have had to give up his body at all, but he had to give up his body because there was so much human resistance that for light to come down, he had to give up his body. So this is written in Srinivas Iyengar. It's from Sri Aurobindo's biography. Very beautiful and touching passage. So I'll read it out as it's written. 2 hours after Sri Aurobindo's passing, the mother announced the news to ashram inmates at 3:30 a.m. on 5th December. Sri Aurobindo's body was to lie in state till noon, and the ashram gates were to be thrown open to enable all to pay homage to the Mahayogi. Although it was intended at first that the body should be interred in the ashram compound in the afternoon, the preparations were suddenly stopped, and late in the evening an announcement was made conveying the decision to postpone the interment. Interment is to put him into the coffin. The funeral of Sri Aurobindo has not taken place today. His body is charged with such a concentration of supramental light that there is no sign of decomposition, and the body will be kept lying on his bed as long as it remains intact. So I spoke to some ashramites. I was always curious. I asked that, did you really see the glow around Sri Aurobindo's body? So this person, normal person like you and me, he said that, I could swear I saw it. He said, I thought that they had done some lighting because, press comes and maybe we wanted the Lord to look a certain way, but I checked, there was no lighting done and we could see the light. So many could actually see the light with their physical eyes. Between 1:30 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. was a stretch of 18 hours. Yet Sri Aurobindo's body had not only not shown any signs of decomposition, it had totally acquired a new luster and a radiant complexion of life. The mother described the new luster as the supramental light and helped Dr. Sanyal. Dr. Sanyal was his attending physician also, who at first couldn't to see it. A luminous mantle of bluish golden hue around him. On the 7th morning, this happened on the 5th, now we are on the 7th, Mother issued a statement that was prayer and benediction both. She said, Lord, this morning thou hast given me the assurance that thou wouldst stay with us till thy work is achieved. Not only as a consciousness which guides and illumines, but also as a dynamic presence in action. In unmistakable terms, thou hast promised that all of thyself would remain here and not leave the earth atmosphere until earth is transformed. Grant that we may be worthy of this marvelous presence, and that henceforth everything in us be concentrated on the one will, to be more and more perfectly consecrated to the fulfillment of thy sublime work. For over 3 days, Sri Aurobindo's body had remained intact. The golden tint had persisted. The eyes closed serenely had yet radiated the greater life, not the extinction of life. On December 8th, the mother asked Sri Aurobindo in their occult meeting. Mother was meeting him, in different planes. So in their occult meeting place, to resuscitate, to come back, to return to life. But he answered according to her testimony, I have left this body purposely. I will not take it back. I shall manifest again in the first supramental body built in the supramental way. That seemed to be final. The lack of receptivity of earth and men, said the mother on the 8th, is mostly responsible for the decision Sri Aurobindo has taken regarding the body. So she says it's the lack of human receptivity that made the Lord leave. On the 9th morning, after over 100 hours of supramental sustenance, the supramental light had sustained the body. The first signs of decomposition were noticed at last, and it was decided to inter the body in the evening, to put it into the coffin. The body was placed in a gleaming rosewood coffin. The box was lined with silver and satin with a velvet cushion at the bottom. Sri Aurobindo's body was covered with a gold embroidered cloth, and the lid carrying Sri Aurobindo's symbol of the 2 intersecting triangles with water and lotus at the center, all in gold, was screwed on the coffin. It was then carried by the sadhaks and laid in the cement concreted vault made ready in the ashram courtyard under the service tree first planted in 1930. A meditative silence reigned in the ashram for 12 days after the passing of the beloved master, writes Rishabh Chand. Then the normal activities began, but with a striking difference. One felt a pervading presence in the ashram atmosphere. On 14th December, the mother half admonished the sadhaks, scolded the sadhaks. To grieve is an insult, to feel sad is an insult to Sri Aurobindo, who is here with us, conscious and alive. And on 18th January 1951, she gave a firmer assurance still. we stand in the presence of Him who has sacrificed His physical body in order to help more fully His work of transformation. He is always with us, aware of what we are doing, of all our thoughts, of all our feelings and all our action. He is always with us, aware of what we are doing, of all our thoughts, all our feelings and all our actions. And all of us have read that beautiful message on the Samadhi, right? To Thee, the material envelope of our Master, to Thee our infinite gratitude. So Mother gave that message for Sri Aurobindo when he was put into the Samadhi. So, in Nirod Baran's inspired language, this is what Nirod Das says: out of his Samadhi, 1,000 flames seem to be mounting up and lodged in our soul, burning in an ever rejuvenating fire, while his presence, enveloping and merging with and radiating from the Mother's being and body, is pervading the whole atmosphere. One can see his presence, hear his footfalls, his rhythmic voice, ever vigilant, devoid of the encumbrance of the physical body. Still, Nirod hears the Master's whisper, I am here, I am here. And with the ear of faith, we can hear the words too. So Nirod hears the Master saying, I am here, I am here. And with the ear of faith, we can hear the words too. So this passage was just to point out the importance of conquering the voice of death in us, the voice of negation, the resistance in human beings which made the Master leave his body. Of course, he didn't leave us, but the body had to be given up to bring down the light. So now we come back to Savitri. This is page 634. This is a dialogue between Death and Savitri. This is Death telling Savitri. Thy words are large murmurs in a mystic dream. For how in the sordid heart of man could dwell the immaculate grandeur of thy dream-built God? So when Savitri is speaking to Death of God, Death is negating God. He's saying Death is God is your imagination. It's a dream-built God. In the impure heart of man, how can God live? God's heart is too impure. Now, do you see, Sri Aurobindo said it very poetically, but these are thoughts in our head also, right? That I am too impure. How can God be inside me? I am too ordinary. How can something so extraordinary be inside me? So all the time, look for these words in your own mind, because death is not outside us. Death is that whisper that lures to evil the human heart. Or who can see a face and form divine in the naked two-legged worm thou callest man? So death writes off man as a naked two-legged worm. You're a worm. You can't aspire to become great. So that is the voice of death inside us, negating our light. O human face, put off mind-painted masks. The animal be, the worm that nature meant. Accept thy futile birth, thy narrow life. For truth is bare like stone and hard like death. Bare in the barrenness, hard with truth's hardness live. So death is constantly negating, and so whenever we want to be extraordinary, reach out for our dreams, there'll be that voice saying, nahi, you won't be able to do it. Aapse nahi hoga, tarathi nahi thase. You know that voice which keeps telling us, whenever something in us wants us to conquer something, that voice will say, no, don't try. Or it'll Either it will tell you you're not capable, or it will tell you it's too much effort, don't do it. So that is the voice of death inside us. But Savitri replied to the dire god. Now Savitri, remember, is the voice of the Divine Mother, the psychic being inside us. Yes, I am human, yet shall, this is page 634. Yes, I am human, yet shall man by me, since in humanity waits his hour the god, trample thee down to reach immortal heights. So that's the confidence mother has in her children, that yes, my children are human, but they will trample you down and reach the immortal heights, transcending grief and pain and fate and death. Yes, my humanity is a mask of God, because death keeps telling her you're human and ordinary. So Savitri is replying, yes, my humanity is a mask of God. He dwells in me, the mover of my acts, turning the great wheel of his cosmic work. I am the living body of his light. I am the thinking instrument of his power. I incarnate wisdom in an earthly breast. So she's saying, I am the Divine Mother and I birth wisdom in ignorant human hearts, earthly breast. I incarnate wisdom in an earthly breast. I am his conquering and unslayable will. I am the will of God, conquering and unslayable. The formless spirit drew me in its shape. So the formless spirit is the divine, but he made me in his image. In me are the nameless and the secret name. So as the Divine Mother, I'm formless and form, I'm nameless and the name. Very beautiful passage. I'll just read it without explanation. Feel it. Yes, I am human, yet shall man by me, since in humanity waits his hour the God, trample thee down to reach the immortal heights, transcending grief and pain and fate and death. Yes, my humanity is a mask of God. He dwells in me, the mover of my acts, turning the great wheel of his cosmic work. I am the living body of his light. I am the thinking instrument of his power. I incarnate wisdom in an earthly breast. I am his conquering and unslayable will. The formless spirit drew me in its shape. In me are the nameless and the secret name. So now death says, not immediately after, but this is actually page 591. So these are again words of death. Blind slave of my deaf force, who I compel to sin that I may punish. So death is telling Savitri, and remember what he's telling Savitri is telling all human beings, that you are a blind slave, you're ignorant, you have no vision, of my deaf force, who I compel to sin that I may punish, to desire that I may scourge thee with despair and grief. So death is in a way sometimes the ignorant beliefs we have about life and God. Sometimes when we are angry at God, isn't this in our mind that you're purposely making me do wrong so you can punish me? You're purposely making me desire and not giving me so that I can suffer. You know, we have quite a blame game with God sometimes, and death is articulating that for us. Blind slave of my deaf force, whom I compel to sin that I may punish, to desire that I may scourge thee with despair and grief, and thou come bleeding to me at the last, thy nothingness recognize, my greatness known. So you know you're nothing and I'm great. Turn nor attempt forbidden happy fields, meant for souls that can obey my law, lest in their somber shrines they tread awake, from their uneasy iron-hearted sleep, the Furies who avenge fulfilled desire. So he's telling her that there are these furious forces which are sleeping, but if you wake them up, they will avenge fulfilled desires. So if your desire is not fulfilled, then this God will sort of make you suffer through the unfulfilled desires. And if your desire is fulfilled, the Furies will avenge them. So I often hear in children, I don't know where they get this conditioning from, I'm talking about teenagers, they'll say that we are scared to be happy because if we feel happy for long, we feel something bad will happen. So all this is the voice of death, no? That there's something dark and hostile which will avenge me for being happy, which will avenge me for fulfilling. All this is not true, but it's the voice of death inside us. So now this is Savitri's answer, page 591 going to 592. The mortal woman replied to the dreadful Lord, "Who is this God imagined by thy night?" It's so beautiful. Death is telling Savitri, the God you're praising is your imagination. And the real God is like this, vengeful, full of punishment, full of not good intentions for you. And Savitri is telling him, who is this God you are imagining? That's not the real God. So Savitri is telling him, who is this God imagined by thy night? Night is your darkness. Contemptuously creating worlds disdained, for who made for vanity the brilliant stars. So he's saying your imaginary God is somebody who's so vain that he makes the brilliant stars just to boast that look how great my creation is. But who is this God? This God doesn't exist. Not he, she says, not he who has reared his temple in my thoughts and made his sacred floor my human heart. My God is will and triumphs in his path. My God is love and sweetly suffers all. So she's saying, you have described your God, but I know that your God is imagination, imagination of an ignorant mind, not he who has made a temple for himself in my heart and made his sacred floor, not he who has reared a temple in my thoughts. So it's like a word picture. I keep telling you, he paints with words. So there's a temple in my thoughts and the floor of that temple is my heart. Not he who has reared his temple in my thoughts and made his sacred floor my human heart. My God is will and triumphs in his paths. So my God is will which always is victorious. My God is love and sweetly suffers all, not your God who enjoys the suffering of his creation. My God is love which has become creation and in creation suffers with creation. No, Mother used to say that I never like to speak of God and his creation. I'd rather speak of God and his becoming. God has become creation. So when creation suffers, he is suffering, but he is suffering with love because he loves his creation. My God is love and sweetly suffers all. To him I have offered hope for sacrifice and gave my longings as a sacrament. Sacrament is something you give for prayers. So more than rituals, Mother says, if rituals help you, do them. But the time for religious rituals is gone, because she's saying the time for religion is gone. In this age, it's time for spirituality and not to stick to the past forms of rituals. So giving sacraments and oil and all that is part of rituals. But she's saying that my rituals and the things I use for my rituals are my longings and my hope, not external things. So to him I have offered hope for sacrifice and gave my longings as a sacrament. Who shall prohibit or hedge in his court? Hedges stop. The wonderful, the charioteer, the swift. Here, of course, he is referring to Krishna. Who can stop Krishna? Who can stop or prohibit or hedge in his course? The wonderful, the charioteer, the swift. A traveler of the million roads of life. So this God is the traveler of the million roads of life. Why? Because million people that travel the million roads, he is all of them, right? Savitri in Savitri there's a line referring to God as the million-bodied one, the one who exists in a million bodies. So a traveler of the million roads of life, his steps familiar with the lights of heaven, tread without pain the sword-paved courts of hell. What a marvelous line. So as God, he is familiar with the light of heaven, of bliss and joy and peace. But when he becomes us, he treads without pain the sword paved. You know, if a floor which has many swords and you're walking on it, but he walks on such a floor without pain. So this is really reminding us that even when, and hell is never something outside life. Heaven and hell are both here, isn't it? So even when we are walking the sword-paved courts of hell, the Godhead inside us is never suffering. So the God inside us walks without pain the sword-paved courts of hell. There he descends to edge eternal joy. In fact, he purposely goes into hell to make it a heaven. He walks the sword-paved courts of hell to bring it the edge of eternal joy. Love's golden wings have power to fan thy void. So she's telling death that love's golden wing have power to even change you, to fan your emptiness. So she's saying the fullness of my love can change the darkness of your emptiness. Love's golden wings have power to fan thy void. The eyes of love gaze star-like through death's night. So I told you earlier that mother says, no, that when hostile beings cast beings of light into the night, see what happened to them. They started shining like stars. They didn't remain dark. So that's what it's saying. The eyes of love gaze star-like through death's night. So it's beautiful, this line. Just learn it up. The eyes of love gaze star-like through death's night. So when we look at a night sky, it's dark, but stars are like eyes of love looking at us through the darkness. So beautiful, no? Each star is an eye of love telling us, don't get overwhelmed by darkness. It's still studded by me. I'm still watching over you. So, the eyes of love gaze star-like through death's night. The feet of love tread naked, hardest worlds. He labors, he is God, labors in the depths. So in the depths is the depths of the inconscient, the depths of darkness. He is laboring there. Exults on the height. He is joyful on the heights and he is working in the depths. He shall remake thy universe, O dead. She's throwing him an open challenge. You say what you like. Right now you're controlling the universe, but he shall remake thy universe, O death. So if you like, just shut your eyes. I'll just read this whole passage without explanation. The mortal woman to the dreadful Lord. Who is this God imagined by thy night, contemptuously creating worlds disdained, who made for vanity the brilliant stars? Not he who has reared his temple in my thoughts, and made his sacred floor my human heart. My God is will, and triumphs in his paths. My God is love and sweetly suffers all. To him I have offered hope for sacrifice and gave my longings as a sacrament. Who shall prohibit or hedge in his course? The wonderful, the charioteer, the swift, a traveler of the million roads of life, his steps familiar with the lights of heaven, tread without pain the sword-paved courts of hell. There he descends to edge eternal joy. Love's golden wings have power to fan thy void. The eyes of love gaze star-like through death's night. The feet of love tread naked, hardest worlds. He labors in the depths, exults on the heights. He shall remake thy universe, O death. So, how do we take today's class home? This whole class is actually talking about a resistance in humanity which doesn't allow Mother's light to work fully in us. And that resistance, in a way, is the voice of death in Savitri, the voice of negation. So I'd like all of you to think, there's that line in Savitri, a whisper lures to evil the human heart. For each of us, there's a unique whisper that pulls us away from the path. Just take a moment to think, what is the whisper that lures to evil your aspiration, that makes you turn away from your aspiration? Just think, what could it be? Any answers? Yes?
So the voice told me that.
One sec, Kurush, can you just give her this?
Thank you. So the voice of negation told me that I will fail, and then there will be nobody to look after when I fail.
Look after you if you fail.
When I fail, yeah.
Yes.
And I could see that stops my aspirations.
That stops your
Yeah.
aspiration. Anyone else? Ashya, can you run it out? Anyone else? None of you can identify. Should I make my question better? When you want to connect with Mother, you want to say, what stops you? Wait, what stops you from connecting with her sometimes?
So
Give it to me.
sometimes it is self-doubt about my capability,
Huh.
that I am not capable of, let's say, growing or progressing.
Huh. So that death's voice saying, be the two-legged worm that you are. Yeah? Okay, anyone else? Yes?
I think sometimes it's just that belief, it doesn't come through. Faith doesn't come through.
Huh.
Maybe,
Faith that you're being looked after.
yes. I think sometimes previous incidents kind of play in your mind that if you were looked after then, why did this happen, whatever. So then it kind of rolls over like, so what is changing now, kind of. So
Yes.
that faith kind of.
Yes, can I have it? So what Riddhi says is, I think something which all of us face at times, right? When we are in a dark spot, we get into the dark spot because somewhere there's not a complete faith that Mother will do it, right? If we had that faith, we wouldn't be in that dark. So doubt, fear, all these are our resistances. And you said a very important thing, if things haven't worked out for us in the past and we felt that we weren't looked after in the past, so why will be looked after now? But maybe that's just your perception. Maybe you were looked after, and if you really go back into the past and stop looking at ways in which you weren't looked after, you'll find many ways in which you were actually looked after. So yeah, fighting faith, fighting fear, all, when mother says the world is preparing for a big change, will you help? Every time we fight this voice of death inside us, we are helping mother with her work. Every time we fight our doubt, we fight our fear, that's when we are really helping mother. Anyone else? Yes.
I'll be loud.
No, take it.
Thank you. Sometimes the thought does come that what is the purpose of doing all this? You feel the faith, you are connected, and
Purpose of doing what?
anything connecting to mother.
Why should I connect?
Why should I connect? And even if I'm connected, if I am connected already, what is the purpose of connecting more? And a second thought is all the other things you read sometimes, that knowledge comes, it's a leela, it's a play. What is the purpose of doing anything then? If the finality of everything is divine, everything is any which way is divine, why do I need to participate in an accelerated evolution if evolution will any which ways happen? What is the purpose? Why? Why the participation if? And many a times the feeling of even if there is a greater purpose, if it is divine in itself, in conception, and the divine will reach the final consummation, whether it's in one eternity, 100, 200 years, I any which ways won't be alive to see it. And in which lifetime, whether I will see it, doesn't matter. These thoughts do sometimes consume the mind.
Okay, you finished then.
That am I being heard by her? Like, is she listening to what I'm saying?
Listening to what you're saying. Okay, let's hear all. Yes.
So when Nash said, what is the purpose, what is the point? Sorry, not purpose, what is the point of doing everything? So one word came into my head, and that is harmony. So we're in harmony with all, and harmony is beauty, and that's the topic for the day.
Yes, beauty conquer the resistance. She was just answering Nash. Nash said, what is the purpose of this whole thing? So she says to establish harmony and beauty, which is what the topic of our talk is. So, yes, this thought can occur to you that even if the supramental comes, it will come after many lifetimes and I won't be there. So forget about supramental. But the first thing only you said that if I'm already connected to the divine, what is there to do? But Sri Aurobindo, no, he said or was it the mother? One of them said a very beautiful thing. They said that spiritual growth is infinite. It's like you climb an enlightenment, he said, is infinite, which is radical. We thought Buddha got enlightenment and that's it. But Sri Aurobindo says enlightenment is infinite. There are infinite sort of climbs to enlightenment. So he says you see a peak and you'll reach it and you'll feel you've reached the top of the peak. And you'll look down and say, nothing to do. But if you look up, you'll see another peak. But if you keep looking down and feel that this is it, there's no more, then that's the voice of death which is telling you, this is it, what more is there? But there's always an infinite more.
What if one is not aspiring
For?
peaks or anything? What if there's a person who
Then find out what is the resistance. The aspiration has to be there. But there is a resistance which covers the aspiration. So the resistance could be a tamas, I'm good, I'm connected, why should I work more to get more?
But just a question. So are you saying all souls are aspiring to reach evolutionary?
If you have come to Mother and Sri Aurobindo, I would say yes. Because his whole symbol is about aspiration. And you couldn't have come to them if you didn't have some aspiration latent somewhere. I'm not saying all of humanity, but definitely those of you who feel called by Mother and Sri Aurobindo, you cannot be called without having that aspiration. Now it's our job to figure out what covers that aspiration and bring it forward. Yeah? And your question about is she hearing me? Just make experiments with it. Constantly talk to her, and through the day see if you feel that she's heard you or not. That's the only way you'll know. But Mother says every sincere prayer is answered. Like, it's like when I take kids to Pandi, I give them that book, Seeds of Light. And I tell them that if you have any question, open to any page at random and see your answer. Now, one boy, when we were at the airport, he couldn't decide what to eat. So he asked Mother, what should I eat? So look at her sense of humor. She made him open to a blank page. Be hungry. No, this is in a lighter vein. But the point is, don't fool around with your questions. If there's no sincerity in your questions and you're just asking to test her, it's not going to work. But it should be really things you want to know. Really, there should be a quest in your questions. Then she's sure to answer. Yeah? Anyone else? Anything? You want to say something? Okay. So we'll end with 3 ohms and we'll meet next Saturday.